Hi there, music lovers at VC and YouTube. I'm here again with another clip where I show records from a special style, and this time I'm going to show records from a style that may be seen as a little unusual to some, but still, I mean, I guess there are record collectors out there who collects records that actually are not considered all that ordinary, but still they love the music. And in my case, I have a very special fascination for Hammond organ music. I definitely love the Hammond. The sound of a real Hammond organ is definitely so cozy, relaxing, and I definitely love it. Uh, if you take, for example, blues music, I'm definitely not a fan of blues music or blues rock or something like that. I think it's a little too boring. But add a Hammond organ to the set, to the rhythm, and I definitely, you see me as sitting there and stomping my feet also. Because the Hammond organ gives such a cozy and relaxing feeling in the music. And I started to enjoy Hammond organ music when I was a little kid, in the age of 12 or 13, in the late 80s. It was a former family friend who played a couple of Hammond records for me, and I recorded it on a tape that I've been listening to over and over, maybe a million times since then, and it got into me. I really felt calm, and when I listened to it, I definitely liked the music, and since then I've been collecting Hammond records. And we're talking about different styles here. You can, when it comes to Hammond records, you can divide them in two different styles. You're having the more jazzy style with the swing and much blues in it, and you have the more of easy listening style, with many of the organists being from Europe, like Middle Europe, Germany, Holland, and so on. And I like them both. I definitely like them both. And I'm going to show records from both styles. But I like them in two different ways, actually. I like the jazz style because it's very funky, very groovy. And I like the more of easy listening style because it's very relaxing and very smooth music. And I'll start right away with the jazz records. And when you're thinking about jazz and Hammond organ, of course, there's just one guy that comes into your mind immediately, and that is Jimmy Smith. And yes, I'm a huge Jimmy Smith fan. It's definitely is one of my absolute favorites when it comes to Hammond organs and when it comes to jazz overall. I've almost made a promise to myself that I'm going to buy at least one Jimmy Smith album a year. And I managed to keep that promise, and sometimes I buy even more than one. 2013, I bought two. They aren't all that easy to find Jimmy Smith albums on second-hand stores, so most of the times I have been uh, leaning on record fairs and my trips to Stockholm and Harvest Records when they actually had opened. But here is a part of my Jimmy Smith collection. This is one of my latest findings. I bought this at Harvest Records when they were closing down in October. This is Jimmy Smith and Hoochie Coochie Man on Verve. It's a Jimmy Smith with a big band, and the big band conducted by Oliver Nelson. Verve release. Great Verve label. Maybe not the best Jimmy Smith album I have, but definitely some very good songs. A great album nonetheless. And there are a lot of Jimmy Smith best of albums out there, and I buy them too, actually, because some of them always contains at least one or two tracks that I don't have had before. This is a Blue Note reissue with Jimmy Smith best of album, containing some of the songs that aren't on every Jimmy Smith album. You have The Champ, You have the Preacher, Sermon, and Mac the Knife is here. And see here, Blue Note. This is a 2 LP set and definitely a great album. This is a very special Jimmy Smith album that I bought. All of my Jimmy Smith albums are in the style of jazz. I know he plays also more funky soul style, and I haven't actually appreciated that until now when I have begun listening to 70s pop music, and I realized that actually it's also very, very good, and I'm going to start collecting more funkier Jimmy Smith albums. But 99.9% of all Jimmy Smith albums here are in jazz and blues style. This one is a little more in cocktail music style, a little more easy listening style almost. I bought this at the record fair. This is released on MGM Records and it's a self-titled album. This one is a very special one that I bought on a second-hand store. This is maybe the newest Jimmy Smith album I have, because my Hammond organ albums is definitely in 90% from the 60s or 70s. This is from 1983. This is a live concert, Keep on Coming, with Kenny Burrell, Johnny Griffin and Mike Baker. Definitely a great album, no doubt about it. Released here on Elektra Musician. Another best of Verve release. Here is my absolute favorite Jimmy Smith album. I definitely like Jimmy Smith the best when he is playing live. Definitely, when Jimmy Smith plays live, you can hear that he's definitely enjoying himself. He's having so much fun playing, and definitely the audience is definitely in it. You can feel that it's joy in the music when Jimmy Smith plays live. So that's why I prefer to have live records, even though I have some studio records also. But this one is definitely one of my favorites. This is a Verve record, Jimmy Smith in Hamburg live. This contains some of the most ordinary Jimmy Smith songs, like Mac the Knife and Got My Mojo's Working. I think that also is on every Jimmy Smith album, as is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. But still, it's with the Quentin Warren guitar and Bill Hart drums. But still, it's a marvelous album, very jazzy, extremely funky, and very, very great listening. Definitely a fantastic album. Here is another favorite of mine that I bought on Andra Jazz at the same time as I bought the Learn to Stadno album that I showed in the previous clip. This is Jimmy Smith Foremost with Stanley Turrentine, Kenny Burrell and Grady Tate. I think I bought it for around $5. We're having here a song that I actually recommended is a version of My Funny Valentine, with great singing of the drummer Grady Tate. Definitely a great live album. And on Andra Jazz I also bought this one 1 year later. Jimmy Smith Plays the Standards. It's actually a great album, definitely, even though it may not be too blues influenced as the other ones. It's more of normal jazz. It's released here on Sunset. Jimmy Smith surrounds himself with great musicians. You have seen a lot of them, Kenny Burrell, but one that he also plays a lot with is Wes Montgomery. This is Jimmy Smith and Wes Montgomery and Further Adventures of Jimmy and Wes. Verve recording. And Jimmy Smith isn't the only Hammond organist, actually, even though he is by far the one that is the most popular. But I have also other Hammond organists that definitely is very interesting. I find very interesting. This is Wild Bill Davis, also an album I bought on a record fair, and Doing His Thing. And another Hammond organist is Jimmy McGriff. I think that Jimmy McGriff actually isn't near Jimmy Smith when it comes to being who's the best Hammond organist. He has some albums that I heard that aren't all that good, but this one definitely is one of my absolute favorites, bought in this record fair and so as well a couple of years ago. This is the big band. He plays Count Basie songs with a big band. You're having some of the most ordinary Count Basie songs here, Splanky, Cute, Avenue C, and so on. Cherry Point. This is a United Artists recording. So, with that, I'm leaving the jazz style and I'm moving on to more easy listening music. And this one is very smooth, very relaxing music, even though I know it's not the hippest thing to actually collect. But still, I like this kind of music, and some of them may be a little cheesy to other collectors, but I definitely stand by the fact that I like it. And this is the album that led me into it, the very first Hammond album that I actually heard, that this former family friend of mine played to me. This is Arvid Sundin. Arvid Sundin normally is a Swedish piano player. He's famous for playing double piano with another pianist, Stig Holm. But this one is made in a style that's very usual for this kind of more easy listening albums. They're taking 3 famous songs and mix them into one song. This is Swedish old slagers that he has made on Hammond organ, and this is released on Interdisc, who is a label, it was a label owned by Swedish warehouse Åhléns. It's another Arvid Sundin. With that, let's move out of Sweden and go to Europe, what should I say, out the other countries of Europe. This is Harry Stoneham, one of the most legendary Hammond organists, and an album called Higher Power Hammond. Definitely a great Hammond organ album, definitely a great one, and with a lot of famous songs like the theme song from the TV series Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, and you're having Moon River, Greensleeves, and so on. Here's another great Hammond organ player that I discovered just recently, Cherry Weiner. When I bought this album and listened to it, I definitely looked at YouTube and found many great clips with her, where she plays more of a jazz and blues style. This is more of an ordinary easy listening style, but still this is a very, very smooth, very relaxing album. But I hope to actually find more of this great South African born Hammond organist. Hammond organ player that I definitely like, that is one of my biggest favorites in this style, is the German organist Nils Tibor. I don't know much at all about Nils Tibor, other than he has released many great albums with relaxing Hammond organ music. He has really great organ, great sound in his organ, always great rhythm in the band. And this is, it doesn't have all that much fantasy when it comes to name this album, because most of them are named Hammond Hit Parade and a number. And this is Volume 5, released on Musik für alle. Also a mix of 3 songs into one tune. This is Hammond Hit Parade number 2. This is a special Nils Tibor. This is Traumland Film. Die schönsten Melodien aus Film, Welt der Vogel, Dreamland, famous film movies. This is music from movies like Dr. Zhivago, Love Story, and so on. Hammond Party, this is definitely one of my favorites. This is a 2 LP set. And going to another series that actually is definitely great, and with a band leader that I definitely have a little hard time listening to. We're talking about The famous German band leader James Last. I have a very hard time listening to James Last actually, because I can't stand the production he's having. Very, very bad produced albums. His band is horrible. Sometimes it sounds like the drummer actually sitting 5 meters outside of the record studio instead of in front of the mic. But when I heard his Hammond series that he made, Hammond A Go-Go, I definitely felt that this one was an exception, because maybe not the best produced still, but great Hammond organ and great music. And I think this one is definitely the best. This is the first Hammond A Go-Go. And we have number 2. Maybe not too much fantasy when it comes to the sleeves. Number 3, released on Polydor, as many of James Last's albums. And he made only 3 albums in the Hammond A Go-Go series, but he also released a 4th album called Happy Hammond. Not as good as the Hammond A Go-Go series, but still some interesting music actually. And this is the only James Last album you will find in my collection, I promise you, cross my heart. Another interesting Hammond organist is Lars Tiselius, also German musician. Lars Tiselius und seine Rhythmusgruppe. Here he is playing double Hammond with Nils Tibor. Here is a solo album with Lars Tiselius, solo, single Hammond. Hammond dancing ohne Pause, which is German for non-stop Hammond dancing. When it comes to album sleeves, sometimes you can cover up the music or the lack of interest of the music by making a very semi-nude album sleeve instead, and that is the case with Dutch Hammond organist Stef Meder. Some of these records are not having, some of these album sleeves are not in the best shape actually, but since I bought it with a very low price, definitely the music is still, the record itself is in good shape. I buy it anyway, in good shape. Not the best album cover, but still, I guess it's a little special with these 70s album sleeves that are not all the time as good as you want it to be. Here is a very special Hammond album that I actually bought mainly because I was curious. I definitely think that I didn't know what kind of Hammond music this was, because it is a Finnish Hammond album, Esa Kataivuri, with the album Hammondilla. All the songs here is in Finnish, and my Finnish is a little bit rusty, so I'm going to spare you by pronouncing the titles, but I had never heard of any of these songs. It was a very interesting thing to buy, but still it's not good. It's not a bad one. Not a bad album, even though they are not the best Hammond album I have, but I still kept it in my collection because it was so special to have a Finnish Hammond album. And finally I'm going to show a Hammond album that definitely is it shows one of the main reasons why I love jazz Hammond music, why I love Hammond music overall. Hammond organ music is, of course, at its best when you hear it live, as I said. And I've been able to see jazz groups with Hammond organ a couple of times now in the recent years. When I became a member of the jazz club here in Sundsvall, I was at a concert with the Swedish group Trinity, fantastic band, and they're returning to Sundsvall in April, and I'm going to go there and see them once again, and hopefully I will buy a record with them then. But I was also a couple of years ago and watched a Swedish-Norwegian band called The Real Thing, also a great Hammond organ band, a lot of jazz, very bluesy style, and I went to the store that they had and bought the record with them, and they were heavy on promoting their latest album, but when I went to their store, they seemed kind of surprised when I preferred to buy an older record with them, because that one was recorded live, and I prefer, as I said, Hammond recordings live. And this is a great Hammond album on CD. Band members is Torstein Illingsen, Paul Groove Wangberg on Hammond, Sigurd Kohn, and Swedish guitarist Staffan William Olsson. I listened to this album immediately after I left the concert and was sitting on the bus back home. I listened to it on my portable CD player. Fantastic album. And with that, I'm going to leave you now by saying that I definitely hope that Hammond organ will have a better reputation soon, because it's a very underrated instrument. It's a great instrument, very relaxing, and until next time, I hope you have a very nice week. So long.